Hey everyone, welcome to US Daily Beat. It's Tuesday, July 28th, 2026, and I'm so glad you're here. We've got some really interesting stories for you today. Wildfires in southwest France flare up as region braces for new 40C heatwave. Uefa reacts with fury to Infantino World Cup plan. Some parents on benefits to get up to $4,500 for child starting apprenticeship. But real quick before we dive in, if you'd like to support the channel, go ahead and subscribe and give this video a like. It genuinely means the world to us, and it's what keeps this show going every single day. All right, with that said, let's get into it. Let's start with something happening in world news. If you're watching Europe this week, one big story to keep an eye on is southern France, where firefighters are trying to keep a lid on wildfires in the Gironde region, just as a new wave of extreme heat moves in. Officials are warning temperatures could climb to around 40 Celsius on Wednesday, and that kind of heat can make already dangerous fire conditions even tougher to handle. The background here matters. This part of France has been hit hard by dry weather, and once vegetation dries out, flames can spread fast and unpredictably. Fire crews have been working to contain the blazes, but hotter, windier conditions can quickly turn a difficult situation into a much more dangerous one. And this is why it matters to the rest of us, too. Wildfires like these are becoming a more frequent challenge in places that aren't always used to this level of heat, which says a lot about how changing weather patterns are reshaping life across Europe. So the big thing to watch next is whether firefighters can hold the line before the hottest part of the week really kicks in. All right, so in world news, there's a pretty big fight brewing in world football right now, and it's about money, control, and who gets to shape the game's biggest tournaments. Uefa, which runs European football, is pushing back hard after FIFA floated the idea of seeking private investment in its competitions, including the World Cup. If you're wondering why this matters, it's because the World Cup isn't just another tournament. It's the crown jewel of international soccer, and any move to bring in outside investors could change how it's run, who profits, and what kind of decisions get made behind the scenes. UEFA's reaction has been described as furious, which tells you this is not a small disagreement. This is about a long-running power struggle between football's top governing bodies. And for fans, the big question is simple. Does private investment mean more growth and better events, or does it risk turning the game into even more of a business? That's the debate we're watching now. FIFA hasn't backed away from the idea yet, so the next move from both sides could shape how the sport's biggest stage looks in the years ahead. Okay, moving on to business and finance. This one is a little surprising, and it gets into how the benefit system can sometimes send mixed signals. In the UK, some parents who receive certain welfare payments could be offered up to $4,500 if their child starts an apprenticeship, because the family may lose some benefits when that young person begins earning. So, on paper, the government is trying to make up for that loss and remove a financial penalty. But critics say the setup can still leave families feeling like they're better off if their son or daughter stays in education or out of work, rather than taking that first step into a job. And that matters because apprenticeships are supposed to be one of the main routes into skilled work for young people who don't want or don't need the university path. We're talking about real jobs, real pay, and training at the same time. So if the system nudges families the wrong way, it can affect whether kids take those opportunities. What we'll be watching next is whether this incentive actually changes behavior, or whether it ends up being just another complicated fix to a deeper problem in how work and benefits overlap. Switching gears here, this one's about business and finance. If you've ever wondered whether school is doing enough to prepare young people for the jobs that actually exist, this is a big one to watch. In England, the government is looking at letting pupils start more technical subjects from age 14, with courses tied to areas like artificial intelligence and manufacturing. The idea is pretty straightforward. Connect what students learn more closely to local employers and the kinds of skills businesses say they need. That matters for all of us because this isn't just about what happens in the classroom. It's about the pipeline into the workforce and whether companies can find the talent they need in the years ahead. For families, it could also mean students get a clearer picture earlier on of the careers available to them, rather than waiting until later in school to specialize. Of course, the big question is how this would work in practice. Which subjects get offered? who gets access, and whether schools have the staff and equipment to make it real, not just a policy headline. So, this is one to keep an eye on because if it goes ahead, it could reshape the path from school to work for a lot of teenagers. Okay, moving on to technology. If you've ever chatted with an AI and assumed it stayed private, this story is a pretty important reminder to double check those assumptions. Some conversations with Claude, the chatbot made by Anthropic, were found to be publicly accessible online. According to the reporting, hundreds of chats showed up where people likely didn't expect them to be visible to anyone else. Now, to be clear, this does not mean every Claude conversation is public, but it does raise a big question we should all care about. When we type something into a chatbot, where exactly does that information go, and who can potentially see it later? That matters a lot if people are using these tools for work, brainstorming, personal questions, or anything sensitive. This kind of issue also highlights a bigger challenge for AI companies right now. As these tools become part of everyday life, privacy and data handling have to keep up. We'll want to watch for what Anthropic says about how this happened, whether any settings or sharing features were involved, and what they do to prevent it going forward. Next up, we've got a story from technology. If you've ever peeled a label off a package and wondered where that sticky mess ends up, you're not alone. The big issue here is that paper recycling is more complicated than it looks. Even though paper itself is one of the most recyclable materials we use every day, glue, labels, and other adhesives can gum up the process and make it harder to turn old paper into clean, new paper. That matters because a lot of the stuff we handle at home and at work is covered in some kind of adhesive, from shipping labels to stickers to branded packaging. When that material gets mixed into recycling streams, it can lower the quality of the recycled paper or even cause some batches to be tossed out entirely. So now there's new technology being developed to help solve that problem, with the goal of making paper easier to recycle without all that sticky residue getting in the way. And for you, this is one of those quiet but important tech stories. Well, it's not flashy, but it could affect how much of what we recycle actually gets reused. The next thing to watch is whether these new materials and processes can scale up without making packaging more expensive or less practical. All right, wrapping up with politics. One of the biggest issues waiting on the new school's brief is student loans, and the person now in charge is making it clear she knows how sensitive this one is. Bridget Phillipson Powell says the loan system is right at the top of her in tray, and she's also standing by her past criticism of the interest charged on Plan 2 loans, calling it egregious. If you've got a student loan or you know someone who does, this matters because Plan 2 is the system many graduates in England are still paying under, and the interest rate can make balances feel like they never really shrink. That's why this issue keeps coming back into the political conversation. Oh, it's not just about monthly payments, it's about whether the whole structure feels fair. What Powell is signaling here is that this won't be treated as a side issue. For the government, the challenge is balancing relief for borrowers with the cost to the public purse. So the next thing to watch is whether those strong words turn into actual changes or just more pressure on a system that a lot of people already think is badly out of date. And that's it for today's US Daily Beat. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. And listen, if you'd like to support the channel and help us keep going, please do subscribe and give this video a like, for it truly makes all the difference. Turn on notifications too so you never miss tomorrow's episode. I'll be back with more news in the morning. Until then, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.